Hello everyone. I'm Sarthak, and I'll be giving SAT in the coming month. So, first of all, congrats to all of you on your scores in the SAT. I'm sure you must be very happy about your scores. I know you must. First of all, also I'm very thankful to you guys for taking out some time for me. I'm sure you must be busy, so I'll just move on to the questions. Okay, so my first question to you all is that since the digital sat has is something which is a very recent development. There aren't many resources through which use it to use. There are only four digital sat papers on the college board portal, and since I've already done those and already practiced the full length tests which were in the college board prep book, I don't have any more resources to use. So I wanted some suggestions from you about the content which I can use for my practice.
I would say that Khan Academy does serve as a very good, way for you to practice the individual concepts. It's also like a checklist of all the things that they will ask you. So in Khan Academy, there's a course for digital SAT for math and English, and they have an explanation and questions for each of the different concepts they will ask you. So you can just go onto there and you can do multiple questions for each kind of topic, and I think that could really help you even understand where you struggle at or what concept needs more work on. So with that, you can actually benefit from it. That's what I use, and I think it really helped me with my preparation.
I
Um,
did use Khan Academy, like for instance, the full length practices were just the same ones which were in the prep book, so I didn't practice much over there. But I did see those videos. But the one difference which I noticed in Khan Academy and and the real test was that uh, the questions in Khan Academy weren't like the practice questions, which they were very different from those which were in the real digital sat paper. So, is there like any other book which could actually give me some experience or some taste of those questions?
Firstly, I do agree with Kavya. I think Khan Academy is a very reliable source because I personally did practice from there and I got a good score. And I think the questions give you like it is a good practice resource, I would say. But even if you want another book, Erica Melzer, right? She did have a book for the paper and pencil SAT, but she also released a book for the digital SAT, Erica Melzer. You can note down her name. You'll get her book on Google.
Thank you, Bea and Pranjal. I'll take note of that. Okay.
Yeah, because also it's just that digital SAT, since it's a relatively newer test, I don't think there's that many resources
Yeah.
book-wise. But yeah, I think Khan Academy would be your best choice as of now. Also because I think it is partnered with the college
Yeah.
board, so
College
you
board.
can just do that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, yeah. Now for my second question, and I think that's one of my main concerns. It's about vocabulary. I can handle maths and grammar and stuff, but I'm just not very good at vocabulary. So, do you have any suggestions on how I can improve my vocabulary?
For vocabulary questions, I think like you have a like a small guide or something for the word root and what the word means. So like file, phile, it actually means loving. So you can just make out what the word actually
Could you
means.
could you please be a little louder? I'm not able to hear you.
I mean that you could just break down the words into word roots and what they mean, and you can figure out what the word is. You don't have to, like mug up the vocabulary or something like that because, I mean, that's impractical, right? So you could
Okay.
just make a guide, or you can find resources on the internet and just look out for word roots and their meanings for, I mean, the English SAT.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
and sorry, just to add on, that's actually a very good method because they have a lot of these kind of tricks for you to understand the meaning of a word. Like for example, antonyms usually have like a at the start, something like that. And also, if you do have like a lot of time till you're sat, you could use something called Word a Day. It's like a website which teaches you new words. And this is to just help your overall vocabulary. Like it won't obviously make you completely prepared for SAT vocabulary, but this is something that you could use in the long run. And lastly, it also depends on your question. For example, if you do have a question but you don't know like what the vocabulary could mean, you could see the other options and you could use elimination to just figure out what is wrong, what is right. But yeah, that could work or work not work based on like your question.
All right. Could you repeat the name of the site?
I'm not sure about the exact site, but if you search Word a Day, I'm sure you'll find a website which helps you, learn new words every single day. I'm pretty sure it's called Word a Day, New Word a Day.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Julie and Kavya. I appreciate it. Okay. So the next question, since you guys already gave your SAT and you almost know what questions we need to answer first. I mean, there has to be an order of questions which, you must have strategized while practicing for it. Uh, so did you like use any tricks during the SAT, like the order in which you answered questions?
I would say for English, especially since English module, it has more questions, less time compared to maths. You should strategize according to what you know. For example, for me, for English, I did all the grammar questions first because I found that easier, and it's easier to score in grammar questions compared to comprehension. And then I would move on to the graph questions and then inference questions, and then those questions like where you have to find out the main idea of the text, or for which you have to read the whole passage, analyze it. You should keep that for the last, because at the last 5-10 minutes, you should keep it completely for those type of questions, so you're able to focus on it completely rather than being distracted by the other questions you've left.
Right. So after completing all that, essentially, in how much time should I finish the English section?
I would say you should have at least like 5 minutes left before the end of your module so that you can go back, recheck. Because for me, it happened during the actual test. There were a lot of questions that I knew the answer to, but I got it wrong in the first try. But because I had 5-10 minutes left to check, I went back and I got those answers correct. So I would say try to pace yourself such a way that you don't have a lot of time left, because that means that you would have not been paying attention to every single question, but also don't go that slow that you don't have any time left. So like 5 to 7 minutes would be enough, I think.
Okay. So the English section is of 32 minutes, right?
No, English is 27 minutes. The maths is 32.
Okay. Okay.
And
Okay.
also just
Thank
to
you,
add
Anand.
on to a point, I think it's a great way how you can like go about the English section, but also it's you can also use tools like flagging the question or like the eliminating option, so that even if you do know, like for example, you know a question but you don't know the exact answer, but maybe two of the option answers are not correct at all, so you can just cross it out so that once you come back to check the answer, you don't have to look at all the options again. So it can kind of save your time, because the time actually is much lesser in the digital SAT. So you need to like learn how to prioritize the questions and just like look at it that way.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And then, yeah, another one of my concerns is that since I already have my classes, which I'm at the classes for at least 12 hours a day, so I'm not sure how to prioritize my time. And I do have some time for the till the SAT, but could any of you just give me a rough idea about how much time should I devote in a week for preparing for the SAT?
I personally think it's very subjective. Like I can't tell you I did it for 2 hours a day, I did it for 3 hours a day. It depends on how concentrated you are. It depends on how much practice you need. I think like according to your class timings, you should decide if the morning suits you or the night suits you. And I think like you can just put together a schedule. I'll do maths for 3 days a week or 4 days a week, and I'll do English for the remaining days, something like that. I personally did it early in the morning. Like I woke up at around 6 because my class is not early in the morning and my college is in the afternoon. So I did it in the morning for 2 hours. Yeah.
Right.
So adding on to her point, I think that you should really focus on about the time you're devoting, right? It matters more on what you're devoting your time to than this amount of time you spent. Because if you focus on things you've already done, like let's say you're already good at like graph data questions in English, and you keep spending time on that, then there's no point of practicing at all. You should try to right now you have a lot of time, so you can focus on what you are weak at. So it's more important that you spend time to focusing on what you're weak at rather than just spending time endlessly. Like if you spend 3 hours a day but doing questions you already know, it doesn't make any difference at all.
Also, like doing like 100 questions a day, one after the other, won't make a difference unless and until you're not learning from them. Like you're not focusing on your mistakes. Like you might do so many questions, like you might find a lot of resources other than Khan Academy, and you might do all of them, but it would not make a difference as long as you do not learn from your mistakes. Like I think you should just like engrave it in your head. Ki, I've made this mistake and I'm not going to make it again, because SAT is a tricky test. So I think the biggest like point I would emphasize on is like learning from your mistakes.
Okay. Thank you,
Yeah, I
Pranjal
think
and
what
Kavya.
Pranjal said just remind me one more thing, that about learning from your mistakes. It's also like important to understand your concepts so well so that you and practicing so that you can identify the pattern of questions. Because when you do a lot of questions, then you understand like what kind of pattern or like what kind of question it is, so that during the test you don't need to think about what rule or what formula you need to use, but rather just the application of it. So during the test, you need to be like understood with the concept so well that you only need to think about the application of it.
Okay. Thank you. And then okay, this question might not be very related to what I'm to the SAT, but do you guys have any books or novels you could recommend?
I think this is a great way to be more focused while reading. And you know what? This might be like many of you might not agree to me, but I found English uh, uh, in the DSAT a little more difficult actually, because when I was doing it for the paper and pencil, it was a long passage, so everything was connected. So I could say focus. Now, after every 2 minutes, I have to keep changing. Like I have to go from one passage to another. That's completely different. And for me, I do read books, so it was easier for me to stay focused on on like an entire article altogether than just like 5 6 lines and then keep changing them. So I would say instead of reading books and novels, read articles. Those would help you more. That's what I would suggest.
Right. Thank you. And then um I guess that's it. I mean, I don't have any more questions, but I would appreciate if you do have some inputs for me.
One thing that I'll say is that I mean, if you've done all the practice tests, you would notice that the English section is a little more harder than the math section.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I would say that I mean, obviously you give your time to both English and maths, but since it is easier to score higher in maths, try that when you're practicing maths, you are like you're closing the gap to suppose you're getting like around 750 to 790 or between 720 to 715 maths. Try to get like your marks in maths closer to 800 as much as possible, because if you get your marks in maths closer to 800, your chances of scoring overall high also increases. And maths, like when I gave the DSAT, I found that the first module of maths, it's really easy to score full. Second module as well, you can score full, and there are like a few tricky questions which I would say are mostly from like algebra, quadratic equations. And so that is one place that you should focus a lot. Like quadratic equations and algebra, I think they put a lot of emphasis on it in the DSAT maths. So I would say you focus on that, as well as English, of course. And English, if you like grasp the patterns of the question, I think it becomes much easier. Because for grammar especially, it's usually the same type of questions, but different sentences. But the pattern of the question is usually uniform for grammar, especially. So if you grasp the pattern, then I think you can score well.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with what Anand said. Especially with the math section, like I don't mean to sound pretentious or something, but these concepts are something you've been learning like all throughout high school, and it is comparatively very like easier to score higher in that. I missed scoring full only because in the second module, I didn't have any time to attempt the last two questions. So I just had to guess, but because I was not able to manage my time that well, so it's important that you're able to manage your time well and like just overall do everything quicker. But also about English, there's just one important thing that I don't know if it's talked about enough, but there is not a full pattern that's followed every single place. Like you need to actually understand the rule, like why it works. Like I'll just give an example to make my point. In your SAT, you're definitely going to be asked this one question in which they will ask you to punctuate a semicolon in the middle of like two independent clauses, and they'll put a word like however or moreover in the middle, and you have to
Yes.
punctuate it. So for this, what happened, like when I was learning the concept, I was like, okay, we always put semicolon like before the word because that's what makes sense. But then when I gave the practice test, I always got it wrong. Like in the explanation, it said that you should put the semicolon after that word, however. And I'm like, okay, fine, I'll by heart it this way. So I'm like, okay, every time I see however in the middle of a sentence, I'll always put the semicolon after it, right? I was like, okay, let me just by heart it. But when I did it on another practice test, I got it wrong because that is not what the rule is. It's very subjective to every kind of question. It's based on like which part of the independent clause is contradictory, and that is where the word is placed. So little things like these, if you just understand the concept, it can really like help you like during your test, because then you're not going to panic about what it is because you understand what the concept is. So I think like little things like these actually help me throughout in English, because English is not something, I mean, I'm more comfortable with math, so actually having these little things in English could like help me in the test.
I see.
I am going to be very honest, I was comfortable with neither. I found both of them difficult, and the math was not my strength. So I don't know if your math is your strength, then great. But if it's not, I would say don't start with quadratics, because everywhere people would be saying it's the most frequently asked question on the SAT, and I completely agree, it is the most important concept. But if you're not good at math, then start from the basics, like start from exponents, then go to linear expressions, equations, systems, like take it in an order. That would make it easier for you if you're not good at math.
Yeah, no, I think what Pranjal said is completely true. Like, you need to just understand from the basics so that, like, it's easier for you overall.
I see.
And even after you master it to a certain degree, I think one of the most important one, which is repeated a lot, is that you need to focus on what they are asking. There'll be questions in which is that they'll ask f of x plus 14 or f of x plus 12, and then you just go in a hurry and try to find f of x, and they know that you're going to make that mistake, so they keep f of x as an option. And you being in a hurry, you mark f of x and you forget that the question is asking for f of x plus 14. So that's where you can lose points so easily because you didn't read the question that as carefully. So that is one important part of digital SAT. They try to trick you with such things.
Yeah, actually, it's so true. I think it's happened with me a couple of times in the practice test. I think one thing I'd say for math, especially, is that while you're doing the question, just like recheck it at the moment. Like very quickly, just recheck it again so that you don't need to keep coming back to it. So in case at the end you don't have any time, you don't worry about rechecking all your answers because you've already checked it during that time when you were doing the question. So I think that helps you like not worry about your answers being right or wrong.
I'll just note it down. So another question comes to mind. Like in the test week or on the day of the test, what are the things I should what are the things I should do, or like should I like what should I keep on my checklist in the test week or on the test day about the things to be done?
Your calculator, I forgot my calculator on the test day. I cannot tell you how panicked I was, but I did. A friend of mine got two calculators with her, luckily, so I took hers. So do not forget your calculator, please.
Calculator check. Anything else?
That reminds me of one thing is that in the Bluebook app you have like an inbuilt Desmos calculator, and another thing of that is, for example, if especially if there's some graph kind of questions, you can literally just put the graph of the question
Yes,
in the
I've tried that
calculator
out.
and get to know. Yeah. So sometimes I don't know if they do it purposely or not, but sometimes the answer is very obvious. Like even if you don't know how to do it, you can just put the quadratic equation in the calculator. You'll get to see the graph, and it can actually help you solve the question much easier. So yeah. And
Like,
about the
which
digital,
calculator would be better? Like a physical one or the one on the blue book app?
well, I think it just depends on what you're comfortable with. Like your normal calculator, I mean, I don't know what you have. I just had a FX Casio calculator, which I use for school, and I'm very comfortable using it. So for calculations, it's quicker, it's easier for me. But then for the quadratic questions, that is not a feature in my calculator, so I just use that Bluebook app one. But yeah, just use something that's comfortable and you used before. So yeah.
Correct.
Right. So adding on to her point, I think you should like when you give your practices, you obviously use Desmos, or if you're using, just practice with your calculator in hand. Like, don't don't be like, oh my god, I'm going to be new to this calculator on the test day, because that is going to be a very major downfall, because your speed is going to be heavily affected by that. So you
Yeah.
should be comfortable with what you're doing. You shouldn't just be like, today's my first day with Desmos, and it doesn't spend like a lot of your time while typing out stuff. So I think that is an important point while you're taking care of calculators.
Also, like just to add on, like this is not completely academic or test related, but just make sure you have all your documents the night before, because you don't want to panic in the morning. Like just have like a Emirates ID or like a passport for safety. And for me, I took a normal. I had the ticket on my phone, but then the person there is like, it's better if you have a printed ticket. So I don't know, maybe it's just better to have a printed ticket of your SAT registration. So just that, yeah. Oh, and also keep a formula sheet or like a rule sheet ready with you while you're studying. So like all the while you're studying, you can have like a notebook in which you mention all the important points and formulas, so that on the test day in the morning, maybe on your way to the test center, you can just look through it one last time and just like feel very prepared.
Uh, the mensuration formulas are already given on the app, right? Only the like ex, ex only the surface area and volume formulas are already given, right?
Yes, there is a reference sheet, and I wanted to add before something that you can do for the test day is like 2-3 days before, don't go on solving like a lot of questions. Like you can go through any notes that you've made for grammar and formulae, you can go through that, but at least the night before, don't try to solve questions, because it is a test, it's not an exam. You can't absorb the entire syllabus one day before, so there's no
Yeah.
point in doing it. Just relax, because it is a tricky test and your mind should be relaxed. Like if you're doing it at the end moment, the night before, and you see there's a question you don't know how to solve, uh, it'll just make the situation worse. So don't, at least 2-3 days before, just calm yourself.
Correct.
Yeah, I
Another,
don't think you should. Sorry, go ahead.
another thing I'll say is make sure that the device you're carrying, you practice with that device before, otherwise, and make sure it's fully charged. Because for me, what happened was when I went on the test day, the person who was supposed to come to give us the code to start the test, there was a delay in that. So we had to sit up like half an hour, 45 minutes extra. And if you have a device that runs out of charge really fast, then and there aren't very many cords in one room. So make sure that whatever device you're carrying, it has like a good battery life, and you've practiced with the device before, so there isn't any problem, no technical problem while you're doing your test.
Yeah.
Also about that, I think when I was about to give the Blue Book test, I had an older version of Blue Book running on my exam on my laptop like a few days before the actual exam. So you should really make sure that you have the latest version, because what happened was I was giving a practice test and then it crashed halfway through. So if that should not happen in your actual exam day. So make sure you have the updated version of Blue Book.
Right. Okay. So guys, I've made note of all the things you have told to me today, and I've I believe I've asked all the questions I had. So I'll just summarize all that we discussed today. So my first question was about uh, the resources which I could use for the digital SAT. So I was recommended Erica Melzer, and for my vocabulary, I was recommended to practice the word roots and origins. I was given the site wordaday.com, and then for my and then you guys told me to properly schedule my time, read articles, grasp the pattern of questions, getting my concepts clear and starting from the basics. And then for the things to be done in the test week, about the calculator, using whatever I'm comfortable with, keeping a formula sheet ready, and getting used to the device you're going to use for the ACT. And then for English, I must analyze the passages, the order in which I should answer questions. As per according to what I've already practiced, I'm going to start with grammar, and then I'll go with analyzing passages, and then the graph questions. Would that be okay?
Yeah, I mean, whatever you're comfortable, like it depends upon your skill set or whatever you're comfortable with, because the interpreting and analyzing the whole text and then finding the main idea, those passages kind of take time. Like you have to really sit and understand what they're asking. So yeah, those questions you should leave last. And I think the graph questions also, maybe they should be like second ask, because some of the graph questions or interpreting data type of questions are tricky in English SAT.
Right. Okay. So yeah,
Just
that's
one
all.
one more like thing that I learned was that, for example, like in English, I think at one point it becomes too much because at every question you're given a new paragraph, it becomes like pretty hard to focus and read on every one of them. So if you're not able to really understand a big paragraph, you might as well just flag it and read it at the end so that you're not bombarded with a lot of information at once. And also, I saw this somewhere online that, for example, if you have no idea about a comma question, like if you have to punctuate it with commas and you don't know like what is rule or what it is, then just read the sentence as it is. Like read the sentence without looking at the options or without looking at any commas in it, and just read it normally at normal pace how you would. And where you pause, you can try to put the commas there. Like this is like a last minute resort. If you don't know how to solve it, you can just try with this method.
Correct. Okay. Well, that's all, I guess. I mean, you have answered all of my questions, and I appreciate it. Thank you for taking out some time for me, and congrats again for your scores. I'll make sure that all the tricks you have given me and uh, all the help you have given me does not go in vain. I'll score I'll score as much as I can on the SAT. Thanks again, and have a great day, guys. Thank you.
No problem, and all the best to you.
All the best.
Thank you.
Yeah, good luck. I'm sure you're gonna do great. Just give it your best time and you can find. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, guys.